Did you know that every day your mind is setting traps for you? Yes, that's right. Without even realizing it, you're falling into psychological pitfalls that can sway your decisions, alter your perceptions, and lead you away from your best interests. Welcome to Every Psychological Trap Explained in 13 Minutes, where we're about to embark on a journey into the mind's most intriguing mazes. Here's a shocking fact. The average person makes about 35,000 remotely conscious decisions each day. And with every decision, there's a hidden risk of stumbling into a mental trap that can twist our judgment. From the allure of the sunk cost fallacy, tricking us into throwing good money after bad, to the sneaky confirmation bias that makes us see only what we want to see. Our brains are bustling with biases that navigate our choices. But why does this matter? Studies show that simply being aware of these psychological traps can dramatically improve our decision-making and overall happiness. For instance, understanding the Dunning-Kruger effect can save us from overestimating our abilities in critical situations, potentially saving careers, relationships, and even lives. Stay tuned as we unveil the 10 most common psychological traps that ensnare us all. By the end of this video, you'll not only be able to identify these traps but also learn strategies to escape them. Let's unlock the doors to clearer thinking and smarter decision-making together. Ready to outsmart your own brain? Let's get started. Chapter 1. Introduction to Psychological Traps. Understanding the basics. Have you ever wondered why we make certain decisions that seem illogical in hindsight? It's all about the mind games we play with ourselves. Psychological traps, often invisible, influence our behavior, leading us down paths we might not choose if we saw them clearly. But fear not, because understanding these traps is the first step to avoiding them. One fascinating aspect of human psychology is how universally these traps affect us, regardless of culture or education. It's like our brains are wired to fall into these patterns. For instance, did you know that nearly everyone overestimates their driving skills? This is a classic example of a psychological trap where our self-assessment is way off mark. It's not just about overconfidence, it's about a fundamental misjudgment of our abilities, a theme that recurs in various aspects of our lives. Research shows that simply being aware of these traps can reduce their impact. A study from the University of Toronto suggests that when individuals are informed about biases like the confirmation bias, they tend to make more balanced decisions. This highlights the power of knowledge and the importance of education in our decision-making processes. So, why do we fall into these traps? Partly, it's because of the way our brains are structured. Our minds love shortcuts. These shortcuts, or heuristics, help us navigate complex decisions by simplifying them. However, these shortcuts can sometimes lead us astray, especially when we face unfamiliar situations. The good news? By understanding these psychological mechanisms, we can learn to recognize and counteract them, leading to better, more rational decisions. In this journey, we'll explore not just the what and the why, but also the how to identify these traps and how to avoid them. Stick with us as we dive deep into the fascinating world of psychological traps and arm ourselves with the tools to evade them. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being better informed and making choices that align more closely with our goals and well-being. Chapter 2. The Sunk Cost Fallacy. When past investments fail us. Ever held onto a stock too long, hoping it would rebound, only to see your losses deepen? Or stayed in a relationship or job that wasn't fulfilling because you'd invested so much into it? Welcome to the sunk cost fallacy, a psychological trap that keeps us clinging to past decisions, making it hard to move forward. The term sunk cost refers to any past investment, time, money, effort, that can't be recovered. The fallacy occurs when this investment unduly influences our future decisions. Essentially, we throw good money after bad or waste time hoping to justify past choices even when it's clear that cutting our losses would be the smarter move. What's truly eye-opening is the pervasiveness of this fallacy. A study published in the Journal of Behavioral Decision-Making found that people are more likely to continue an endeavor if they've already invested a lot into it, regardless of the actual future benefits. This behavior contradicts basic economic theory, which suggests we should make decisions based on future gains, not past losses. But why do we fall for this trap? It's partly because of our inherent aversion to loss. Our brains feel the pain of loss more acutely than the pleasure of gain. This loss aversion means we'll do almost anything to avoid admitting we've lost, especially if we've got to admit that loss to ourselves. Moreover, the sunk cost fallacy ties into our need for consistency. Admitting we've made a mistake can feel like a threat to our self-image. It's easier to keep believing in a bad decision than to confront the possibility that we were wrong. Breaking free from the sunk cost fallacy requires mindfulness and a willingness to assess situations based on their current and future merits rather than past investments. A simple strategy is to ask yourself, if I were making this decision today without considering what I've already put into it, what would I choose? This perspective can help cut through the fog of past investments, leading to clearer, more rational decisions. Chapter 3. Confirmation. Bias. Seeing what we want to see. Imagine browsing through your social media feed. Notice how most posts echo your own opinions. This isn't a coincidence, it's confirmation bias at work, a psychological trap where we favor information that reinforces our pre-existing beliefs and ignore evidence that contradicts them. It's like we're wearing blinders, filtering out the world's complexity to maintain our current worldview. Confirmation bias isn't just about feeling comfortable in our echo chambers. It has real-world consequences. For example, in the financial world, investors might stick to their losing strategies because they pay attention only to the data supporting their decisions, a behavior that can lead to significant financial losses. Studies have shown that actively seeking out diverse opinions can lead to more robust decision-making processes and better outcomes. The roots of confirmation bias lie deep in our need for consistency and cognitive ease. Admitting we're wrong is psychologically uncomfortable. It disrupts our self-image and the coherence of our beliefs. To avoid this discomfort, our brain takes the easy route, processing information that aligns with our current beliefs while disregarding the rest. Overcoming confirmation bias requires conscious effort. One effective strategy is to actively seek out and consider opposing viewpoints. It's about challenging our assumptions and asking, what if I'm wrong? This approach doesn't just broaden our perspective, it strengthens our decision-making by forcing us to confront the full spectrum of evidence, not just the parts that make us feel right. Chapter 4. The Dunning-Kruger Effect. Overestimating our competence. Have you ever encountered someone with minimal experience loudly asserting their expertise in a subject? That's the Dunning-Kruger effect in action, a cognitive bias where people with limited knowledge or ability in a particular area greatly overestimate their own competence. Ironically, the less people know, the more confident they seem to be in their flawed knowledge. This phenomenon was first identified by psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger, who observed that for certain skills, incompetence denies people the ability to recognize their own incompetence. This leads to a double curse. Not only do these individuals perform poorly, but they're also blissfully unaware of their inadequacy. One of the most cited examples of the Dunning-Kruger effect comes from a study involving a group of college students who performed poorly on a test of logical reasoning. These students overestimated their performance, placing themselves above more competent peers. This overestimation isn't just limited to academic settings. It's prevalent in various aspects of life, including driving ability, leadership skills, and health-related behaviors. The root of the Dunning-Kruger effect lies in a basic human tendency, our brain's desire to view ourselves favorably. It's a form of self-protection, preserving our self-esteem by filtering out negative information about our abilities. Unfortunately, this self-deception can lead to missed opportunities for learning and growth. Combating the Dunning-Kruger effect involves cultivating humility and seeking feedback. It's about recognizing that true expertise is marked not by confidence in what we know, but by an awareness of what we don't know. Encouraging a culture of learning and curiosity can help individuals recognize their limitations and foster a more accurate self-assessment of their abilities. Chapter 5. Fear of missing out. FOMO. The anxiety that keeps us hooked. In an age where social media reigns supreme, the fear of missing out, or FOMO, has become a pervasive anxiety. FOMO is the uneasy and sometimes all-consuming feeling that you're missing out on experiences that others are enjoying. It's that nagging feeling that fuels endless scrolling through Instagram stories at 2 a.m., wondering why everyone else seems to be having a better time than you. This psychological trap taps into our deep-seated need for social belonging and approval. A study from the Computers and Human Behavior Journal found that high levels of FOMO can lead to significant negative effects on our mental health and well-being, including stress, sleep problems, and depression. The irony is that the more we try to catch up with others' lives online, the more we disconnect from our own real-life experiences. The driving force behind FOMO is comparison. Our brains are hardwired to evaluate our status in relation to others. Social media platforms, with their highlight reels of other people's lives, provide endless fodder for this comparison, often leaving us feeling inadequate and left out. To combat FOMO, it's crucial to take a step back and focus on what truly matters to us. Mindfulness practices can help ground us in the present moment, appreciating our lives for what they are rather than what they're not. Additionally, limiting social media usage and fostering real-life connections can shift our perspective from what we're missing out on to what we're a part of. Chapter 6. The Halo Effect. First impressions misleading us. The halo effect is a cognitive bias where our overall impression of a person influences how we feel and think about their character. Essentially, if we see someone in a positive light in one area, we're likely to make a positive assumption about them in other areas too. This can lead to skewed judgments and decisions, from hiring practices to personal relationships. This psychological trap was first identified by psychologist Edward Thorndike in the 1920s. He noticed that physical attractiveness often leads people to assume positive personality traits, such as kindness or intelligence. This bias isn't just superficial. It has profound implications. For example, research has shown that attractive individuals are often perceived as more competent and are more likely to be hired, promoted, and even paid more. The halo effect extends beyond physical appearance. It can influence our perceptions based on a person's reputation, job title, or social status. This bias reveals how our brains prefer simplicity over complexity. It's easier to categorize someone as good across the board than to hold a nuanced view of their character. Counteracting the halo effect requires conscious effort to separate our initial impressions from our overall judgment of someone. It involves actively seeking out information that contradicts our first impression and being open to adjusting our views based on new evidence. By recognizing the halo effect at play, we can make more balanced and fair assessments of those around us. Chapter 7. Choice Overload. When more is less. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by too many choices, to the point where making a decision becomes almost impossible? This is known as choice overload, a psychological phenomenon where having too many options leads to anxiety, decision fatigue, and ultimately dissatisfaction with our choice, if we manage to choose at all. Choice overload challenges the conventional wisdom that more options mean more freedom and therefore greater satisfaction. In a landmark study, researchers set up 2 displays of jam at a gourmet food store, one with 24 varieties and another with just 6. Interestingly, while the larger display attracted more onlookers, the smaller display led to more purchases. This finding illustrates the paradox of choice. Too many options can paralyze rather than liberate us. The root of choice overload lies in our fear of making the wrong decision. With more options, we raise our expectations and fear regretting our choice, which can lead to decision paralysis. This is compounded by the modern world's infinite array of choices, from simple daily decisions like what to eat to more complex ones like which career path to follow. To combat choice overload, it's helpful to simplify the decision-making process. This can be done by setting clear criteria for what you're looking for, limiting your options to a manageable number, and accepting that seeking the perfect choice is often an exercise in futility. Embracing good enough can lead to greater satisfaction than endlessly searching for the best. Chapter 8. The Bystander Effect. Diffusion of responsibility. The bystander effect is a psychological phenomenon where people are less likely to offer help to a victim when other people are present. The more bystanders there are, the less responsibility any one individual feels to intervene. This can lead to situations where someone in need is ignored by a crowd, each person assuming someone else will step in. This effect was famously studied following the tragic case of Kitty Genovese in 1964, where it was reported that numerous witnesses did nothing to help her during an attack. While later investigations questioned the accuracy of these reports, the incident spurred research into the bystander effect, confirming its existence in various situations. Understanding the bystander effect is crucial for overcoming it. Studies have shown that simply being aware of this psychological trap can make people more likely to act. Recognizing that the diffusion of responsibility is at play helps individuals break through the barrier of inaction. To counteract the bystander effect, it's essential to be proactive. If you're in a situation where help is needed, take charge by doing something as simple as directly asking a specific person for help, rather than issuing a general plea. This direct approach can overcome the diffusion of responsibility and mobilize assistance more effectively.